Hey guys, what is up? And the topic of today's video is actually a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time now, and that is the future of the Order IP. The main reason is because a while ago when Ready at Dawn were interviewed by Game Informer, they said that they are busy at the moment working on 2 original IPs and that they are also platform agnostic at this point, which leaves the Order's future in doubt. Plus I thought it would be a good opportunity now to give my quick thoughts on the game so that I can justify why there needs to be a sequel and say who I think should develop it, if not Ready at Dawn. It's no secret that when the Order 1886 came out, it was met with a very mixed response, with quite a few critics giving it average and negative scores. It's also pretty clear that it underperformed commercially since Sony have been tight-lipped about exact sales numbers. I don't think it sold badly given that it did pretty well in its opening week, I just don't think it sold as well as Sony was hoping. According to VG charts, as of the 14th of November it sold 1.25 million copies worldwide. I know people don't see them as a very credible source of information, but if it is indeed around that number, I think that's good enough to warrant a sequel. Something that happened which was very unfortunate and really hurt the game was that a walkthrough was posted on YouTube a few days before it came out of someone completing the game in 5 hours. It was quite obviously a second playthrough since copies leaked 2 weeks before the game even came out. A lot of the people then seemingly made their mind up before even giving it a go themselves that it was going to be this 5-hour game. Personally, I don't really care about the length of a game, it's more about what the game does in the time that I have with it. Even then my playthrough lasted about 8 or 9 hours, and from what I gathered it was around the same time for many other players. The shortest time I heard of was actually around 7 hours, so it was nowhere near that short. Hopefully many of you have gotten the chance to play it by now, especially now that Black Friday has passed. I thought it was good, but it wasn't the great game that I was expecting. I still think people were overly harsh on it though. I thought the shooting mechanics were great, I loved the setting and the environment, and there were some very interesting characters. While the story ended very abruptly, I enjoyed and found myself invested in what was there. Jason Graves also did a phenomenal job with the soundtrack, and if you haven't already, I recommend you check out the track called The Edge of Sanity, which is my personal favourite. It did have its fair share of shortcomings however. The game kept taking control away from you and you spent a lot of your time slowly walking around environments inspecting meaningless objects. The fights with the Lycans could have been a lot more imaginative, and when the story finally starts to really ramp up with the introduction of vampires, it just ends. It almost felt like the game ended at the halfway point. I kind of get why it ended at that point though, since Ready at Dawn made it clear that they wanted to focus on Galahad and how he went from being a loyal knight of the Order to a fugitive, but the fact still remains there are too many unanswered questions. For instance, who was the mysterious man in the black coat that Percival was seen speaking to? What are the Purebloods like? And what is Lord Hastings up to now since he managed to escape? I know this is a bit weird to say given that we've only had one game set in this universe and nothing else, but I think the story didn't really give the lore the justice it deserved. I would have liked the game to delve more into the story behind the Blackwater and the ramifications of relying on it so much, since there was always this ominous feel every time the knights drank from their vial. I also would have liked to find out more about Galahad's past and his history with the Order, since he's been alive for hundreds of years. If the mysterious hooded figure was actually King Arthur, it would have been a good way to find out more about the Order itself and its history. There is still so much another game could explore, since I think Ready at Dawn did really well with crafting a rich lore, and especially when the story of the first game left so much open. It's clear that the Order 1886 was designed with later entries in mind, and it provided a great setup for a bigger and much better sequel. Now that we know about the existence of the Purebloods, maybe they could help the half-breeds consolidate their power, who are now weaker having lost one of their elders, Sir Lucan, who was trying to ensure their survival. This would mean that they don't need Lord Hastings and the vampires anymore to help them survive. An all-out war then breaks out between the vampires and the Lycans, with Galahad, who is now on the run from the Order, caught in the middle. Something that I really liked was the comment by Sir Lucan at the end that after having seen civilizations end because of human greed and holy wars, from his perspective humans are no less evil than the Lycans. The ending also painted the Lord Chancellor in a different light, and served to illustrate that there are innocents on both sides of the conflict. I hope that if there is a sequel, the notion that there isn't necessarily a right or a wrong side is explored further. I would definitely like to see the Order set in London again, and since Tesla is on your side, you'd have someone to come up with new, even cooler weapons that you'd be able to upgrade throughout the campaign. So assuming Sony decides to carry on with the Order IP, what studio should be responsible for developing the next game? My first choice would actually still be Ready at Dawn, because they have made fantastic games in the past, and at the end of the day it's really their baby. I think they deserve another crack at it so long as they take into account all of the legitimate criticisms of the first game. However, according to a Game Informer article, there have been some pretty big changes that were made to Ready at Dawn after the Order 1886 came out. According to their interview with Ru Virasuria, they are now platform agnostic, which means that they'll now be making games for the Xbox One and PC as well as the PS4. He also said that they are busy right now with 2 new IPs, and one of them is probably the exclusive VR game for Oculus Rift, which they announced back at the Oculus press briefing back in June. One of the big changes made was opening up a new office in Austin, Texas to allow for Ready at Dawn to self-publish its own titles. This would make sense because they've openly stated that they don't want to give up the ownership of the IP that they create, like they did with the Order 1886 to Sony. So since Sony own the IP and can hand over development duties to whomever they want, which studio would I like to see them choose if it can't be Ready at Dawn? My next choice would actually be Sony Santa Monica. This makes perfect sense for me since their external development team helped Ready at Dawn produce the game, so the studio would already be very familiar with the IP. Not only that, but Santa Monica are known for being able to craft massive action set pieces that exceed people's expectations, so I think it would be a good fit for them. I mean, imagine a set piece featuring both vampires and Lycans fighting while you play as Galahad. I know a lot of people would rather see them work on a new IP alongside a new God of War, but I love the idea of them working on the sequel since I think they do it a lot of justice. Some people were also suggesting that Sony Bend would be a good first party studio to take over, given their success and experience with the Siphon Filter series, which are fantastic third person shooters. I think they might be too busy for it though, since it's been rumoured for quite a long time now that they're making an open world horror game. The fact that Shuhei said that it would make us panic when he was asked to describe their game in one word confirms that this is what their next game will be, but we'll have to wait and see. But I do think that they could have a team dedicated to the Order after they release their new game sometime in 2016 or even 2017. Another suggestion I liked was Gorilla Cambridge. They've made some great games like Medieval 1 and 2 on the PS1, Little Big Planet on PSP, and Killzone Mercenary on the Vita. I know they're currently making the PSVR game Riggs, but it doesn't really seem like a game that would require the manpower of the whole studio, but I could be wrong. They are also no strangers to contributing to a second party game, since they helped with Heavenly Sword. If Sony would prefer to keep its second party with the Order, I'd like to see maybe Insomniac do it, since they've proven that they can still do really well when they go into darker territory with the Resistance games. They're also known for being very creative with their weapons, which I'd love to see translate over to a game with Tesla in it. But I think that like the other studios I've suggested, they might feel uncomfortable about working on an IP that they didn't create. Since it looks like Ready at Dawn won't be doing the sequel, my first choice would technically then be Santa Monica Studios, so I really hope Sony chooses them if they are up for developing it. I really want a sequel, and I hope it doesn't end up being the Heavenly Sword of this generation, where the IP is pretty much thrown under the bus after the first entry. There is just so much future sequels could expand on, and I really think it deserves a second chance. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think the Order should carry on, or should Sony abandon it? As usual guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe, and share the message if you want to let people know that the Order should continue. Stay tuned for my next video on my impressions of the Uncharted 4 multiplayer beta, which I've been playing quite a bit these past couple of days. Thanks for watching.